For latest updates and short audio clips, follow us on Instagram, Reading the Author.
Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast Reading the Author, a unique show where we read authors' mind and not their book. Meanwhile, I truly believe and pray that you and your families are completely safe and healthy as well. Guys, today we have Bhaswar Mukherjee sir with us, and he has contributed in altogether 12 anthologies, and he has written altogether 3 solo books as well. Thank you so much, sir, for coming on our show. It is my honor to be able to host you today.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be on Reading the Author show.
Likewise, sir. So before we get into the podcast and talk about much about your the released works and upcoming plans and everything, I would request you to please introduce yourself so that our listeners can know much more about you, and do let us know how you started this writing journey.
Sure. So my name is Bhaswar, and I'm essentially an engineer and an MBA from IIM Bangalore. I was working in corporates, which is basically multinational banks, for close to 17 years before I took the leap of faith and set up my own company, which is Bridgepoint Solutions, in the year 2005, and became an entrepreneur. My writing journey started in writing journey in the sense of being a published author started in 2014. Before that, as a child, obviously you dabble in a lot of writing because it's compulsory school work. But I must say that because I was born and brought up in Jamshedpur, I was fortunate enough to have studied in Loyola School, which is a Jesuit school. So the Jesuit fathers there imbibed in me or indoctrinated me with the love for the English language. And I also had an aunt to whom I'm specially indebted to, because she was a voracious reader of English, and I used to often visit their place in Calcutta, and I used to dive into her collections and basically read whatever she had. So I think all of this contributed to my love for the language and therefore my love for writing. But in many ways, I'm actually an accidental author or accidental writer, because I used to write short stories. I began writing short stories, and until a friend of mine forced me to send one to a contest, I perhaps would never have become a published author. The writing would have remained in some folder in my laptop. So that's how my writing, or my love for writing, started.
Okay, sir. So, sir, as we know that all the books have been released, and talking about your latest book, Scarred Earth, after listening to this podcast, many people will just love to explore or, love to just read the book. So when it comes to talking from a new reader's perspective, what they can expect from this book? Can you share some insights with us?
Sure. So, Scarred Earth essentially is a story which was, shall I say, bubbling within or simmering within for a long time, and it basically had to flow on paper. The reason why readers will love this work is, first of all, I do write a lot on human drama. I believe human interactions is what fundamentally shapes us. Our experiences shape us. So this book is, you could put it in the genre of a cross genre of literary fiction, genre fiction. It has got a little bit of crime, but fundamentally the story is about two adolescents who kind of, despite being thwarted by many things in life, being buffeted by the waves of a lot of adversities, are able to overcome it. So it's a story of survival. It's a story of hope. And the reason why I think readers will love this work is because normally we hear of these kind of stories when we are talking about, adults, but this is a story about two teenagers. And I think that is where it's going to be extremely attractive for the reader to pick up. And those who have read the book have said that they are unable to put it down. So I think that has been very, very, I'm very humbled by that kind of feedback. And I think that's what readers are going to love. So it essentially it's a book in 3 parts. It starts off by talking about a village in an obscure place called Banguran, and then moves to Calcutta and then to Siliguri. So it's a book in 3 parts. Once you finish the book, readers will perhaps feel that the story is incomplete. And I'm already working on the second part of the book as we speak.
Okay. So as you said that, you're working on the second part, and as you have written other books as well. So now talking from a reader who has already read all your books, so what they can expect as of now, except this sequel of Scarred Earth, what else is there in the pipeline? Because you're someone who is not here, just to publish a couple of books and just leave this industry. You're someone with the big picture, what I can personally feel here. And so is there anything in the pipeline you want to experiment a bit on some other genres as well, or you want to stick to only these? What's upcoming?
Okay, thank you for that question. So one should always write what is within one's heart. And right now I'm working on a non-fiction. It's a true crime. It is a dated non-fiction, so the research has been fairly daunting, but I'm working on that, and that should be completed in the next couple of months. I have published one anthology in 2020. My other set of 15 stories is also ready, looking for a publisher as we speak. So there is an anthology also in the works. And of course, the second part too of Scarred Earth, which has already been named as Cloudburst, I'm working on that as well. So there is a fair amount of work which is there in the pipeline, and let's see what happens.
Okay. So, sir, after writing so many, work and publishing it, what I have personally observed in this industry that, most of the authors are working towards making their name as a brand, or, they want to be known or remembered as a certain genre or certain type of authors. So when it comes to you, okay, let's say from a couple of years from now, if someone has read all your books and they say, okay, new book by Bhaswar sir. So what exactly you want to let that reader think कि okay ठीक है भास्वर सर की बुक है ऐसी होगी ये मुझे ये चीज मिलेगी that sudden impact you want to create कभी सोचा इस बारे में?
जरूर. So I think what the reader I want to leave the reader with is that I write from my heart, and this the Bhaswar is a writer who's extremely genuine. Bhaswar is an author whose work resonates because people will experience that the characters I generally deal with are some people they have met or someone they can touch and feel. So there's a sense of identity. And they will also feel that this person is versatile because he is able to write not just in a number of short forms, short form, long form, but is also able to work equally well with fiction and non-fiction. So I want to be known as a versatile writer. That is I think the kind of impression or the kind of afterthought I want my readers to have about me, because when we speak about writing fiction versus non-fiction, the approaches are very different. Fiction requires you must allow your creativity to flow, whereas in non-fiction it has to be very well perimetered in the sense that you have to plan your work very properly. You have to have a very, very clear roadmap on what you're going to write and so on. So those are two different challenges, and I want my readers to remember the fact that I executed both challenges with equal finesse or with equal genuinity. I think that's what I want my readers to remember me by.
Okay. Do you have any particular writing schedule, sir, or it's just like random कि कभी कोई thought आया तो बैठ के phone में या डायरी में jot down कर लिया, after that फिर बैठ के लिख रहे हैं? How does it goes with you?
Correct. I do try to, and I think that's what most writers do. We come across a lot of experiences. We see, hear, feel things, and that essentially percolates in our writing, and that definitely happens. So I try to capture those moments which I want to appear, or I feel are going to be very important in a story. But having said that, unfortunately, the kind of discipline which writing requires, I don't have. It is something I'm working towards, but I think I've spent far too long in the corporate world. So like in the corporate world, you're always racing deadlines. Very similarly, I always kind of race deadlines when a publisher tells me, your time is up, you need to submit. So to that extent, and I think what also happens is inspiration, unfortunately, is very much like a ketchup bottle. You keep shaking, nothing happens, and then suddenly there's a deluge. So writing happens to me that way. But from what we have heard in terms of disciplined writing does require you to sit every day and churn out stuff, which unfortunately I don't do. I should be doing more of it. So that discipline I need to imbibe.
Okay. And that's quite impressive, sir. And what I have personally seen that, as we are from more than 7+ years we have completed in this industry, and I have personally seen that after the first lockdown was over, the numbers of author got increased very rapidly. Like there was a boom in this industry. So when it comes to you, what's your take on how difficult it has become to make your book stand out in the market as of now? Or you're someone who feels कि okay, ठीक है, every book will find their own reader, every author will find their own audience? or you are someone who feels ki, basically the market is quite flooded and it's become really hard as of now to make a book stand out? What's your take?
That's again a very, very interesting question because as an author, and I think this is a challenge which is faced by most writers and authors, is the fact that you put all your efforts into the book, and once the book is ready, you realize that you have to market it because it has to be stood out. The book has to be discoverable. I may write wonderful stuff, but if it's not discovered, then what's the point? It will lie somewhere. I think what has happened in the pandemic is the fact that, and it's to me, it's a little worrying because I think what has happened is there are 2-3 things which have happened. One, the platforms for publishing have kind of mushroomed, so there's a lot of self-publishing happening. People can reach out to Kindle Direct Publishing or reach out to self-published authors.
Lots of literary agents are there, yeah. Yep.
Yes, they can publish easily. They don't have to wait, months and years for a traditional publisher to pick them up. So that's one trend. The second trend, which I think is a little more scary for me, is the fact that with artificial intelligence having come in, everybody feels that he or she can become a writer because there is so much of material available. To me, that is a more serious challenge because all that writing just coming into the market is actually becoming the receptacle of information on which AI is going to build. At the end of the day, generative AI is nothing but takes information from whatever is available in the system.
True.
And if that information in the system is not going to be genuine, it's not going to be good, then obviously the output is going to be increasingly suspect. So that trend to me is a little more dangerous. But having said that, I believe that if you are able to continuously work and hone your craft, and if you are able to get help on the marketing front, because that's something I think all authors require, you should be able to find, at least at some point of time in the future, if you keep at it, you should be able to find some space for yourself, although you may have to your book may have to jostle the bookshelf with a number of other books. But eventually, I think you will find your pride of place. I think that will happen. Maybe the number of people who read your book may not be as much as you would like, but definitely you will find fair amount of people who would be interested in your work.
Okay. So, sir, when was the first day, that exact day when your book was published?
Okay, so as I said, because I was a contributory author, my first book, I think, got published in 2014, or my first story in the contributory anthology got published in 2014.
Okay.
I think it was March 2014, if I'm not mistaken. So that was my first time I saw my name and work in print.
Okay. And when was the first time when the solo book was published?
That came out in January 2020. So that was right in the middle of the pandemic.
Okay. So now let's get back to the time, on March 2014, on the day just before when you heard, okay, tomorrow your book will be live. Okay. On that particular day, what was on that particular eve, especially, what was going on in your mind? Were you excited? Were you relaxed? You just, marked up some milestones. Okay, these many people know me. My book has to be sold out. These many copies. Because, everybody was able to judge the book, judge your thoughts because on the basis of what you have written. So what was going on in your mind at that time?
Right. So when my contributory anthology came in, I think I was more excited than anything else because it would be the first time I would see my name in print. So that was a huge high for me. I think when my solo work came out, what replaced the sense of high was the sense of responsibility. Because I think one of the most important things as an author you do is when you put your work out there for people to read and see, you're actually influencing society. You're being, in some ways, perhaps an influencer or a change maker. You're worried about how people will receive the work, whether it is going to have a positive impact on society. So those are the kind of things which kind of engage you. So when my solo work came out, I was far more worried, if I can use the word, than I was feeling high. But when my contributory work came out, because there were so many other authors also in the fray, that sense of responsibility perhaps did not percolate so much. But when my solo work came out, I think what came out more, what I was worried about more in terms of how it's going to be received and the responsibility that comes with being an author or a writer.
Okay. When you write down your book, sir, then what exactly happens? You just first maintain and create all those plots and you then just fill out the space, or you just let the story breathe in its own space and just go ahead with whatever you feel at that particular moment?
So my writing philosophy for both
Hmm.
fiction and non-fiction are entirely different. When I'm writing fiction,
Hmm.
I have a loose story plot, but it is not something which I stick by, because I believe more frequently, just like the events in our life is dictated by character conflict, so does the plot also move because of a character conflict, or because of of the certain steps being taken by the character in
Hmm.
the story. So I may have thought of a plot, but then my character may take me by her hand and the story may go entirely elsewhere. And that's where I think your creativity comes into play. But
Hmm.
when it is non-fiction, because you cannot allow your creativity to, fetter the narrative, at that point of time, the what I'm going to do, my roadmap is very, very clear. The way I would plan the book, the chapters, what each one is going to contain is far more structured than when I write fiction. Fiction is a lot more of, the muse taking me by her hand and letting the thoughts flow into paper. That's the way it works for me as far
Hmm.
as fiction is concerned. So there are two very different, processes which are at play when I'm writing fiction and non-fiction.
Okay, okay, okay. Ever got that fear of reviews? Like, what people will think, or what the audience gonna respond, how my, near and dear ones gonna respond about this particular, page or particular story, particular plot I'm writing. Ever that thought strike in the mind?
Yes, it does. And you are always there are two parts to it. One part, of course, is the fact that as a writer or as an author, you must be like a sponge. So whatever the feedback you're receiving, you must be able to take it in, and you must be able to use whatever is positive to improve your craft. So
Hmm.
even if it's negative criticism, or you should take the learnings out of that, is what I feel. But if there is if there's something which is very scathing or which seems to be personal, I think you need to discard it, because otherwise it's going to detract you from your future endeavors.
Hmm.
So feedback to me is a process by which a writer can only improve his or her work. And to that extent, feedback is very, very important, because that's essentially what your audience feels about your efforts. So yes, there have been situations where I have been extremely elated, and there have been situations where I have felt that perhaps it was, perhaps a little too scathing. And even there, I think it's just like a duck takes out the milk out of the water. You must take the positives out of the negative. That's the only way you can forge ahead. That's my reading about feedback and about what your audiences say
Hmm.
or your
Hmm.
readers say.
Okay, okay, okay. My last question probably of this podcast would be, sir, what would be your advice for those upcoming authors? Because, after listening to this podcast, many people will just start writing, or they must be holding their first draft in their hand, in their laptop, in their diary. So what would be your advice for them?
So I think there are two, three things. I mean, obviously, I believe that an author, no matter how many books he or she has written, continues to remain an apprentice. You never become a master at the craft, because you're continuously improving. Having said that, this is obviously the advice I'm giving as an apprentice, so take it with a pinch of salt.
Hmm.
But I think there are two, three things which are very important. The first is, if there is a story within you, it must come out. It does not matter in what shape, form it comes out, whether it's self-published, vanity published, traditionally published, it really doesn't matter. But that story must come out.
Hmm.
Before that story comes out, no matter how much you are, because we as writers get very invested in what we write. We believe that it's the next best thing to sliced bread. But because you must also, take a little bit of rationality in that thinking, it must be read by people you trust, especially the kind of audiences your book is pitched at. So if I'm, for example, writing a young author, or sorry, young audience, a kind of a rom-com or a chicklet, that should be my audience, who should be beta read or alpha read my book and
Hmm.
give me feedback, so that I'm able to improve upon it even before it goes to the publisher. So that's the second thing. Take feedback even at the stage when you're writing it. Third, you must be able to edit ruthlessly, because again, the same thing happens. So if I've written maybe 100,000 words, I must have the heart to be able to cut down 20, 30,000 words from it, because no matter how good I believe it is, the audience may not have the patience patience to go through so much of writing. So
Hmm.
you must be very, very critical of your own work. You must take feedback positively. And very important, something which I have not been able to do is that you must write every day. So it doesn't matter what you write, doesn't matter even if you discard it, doesn't matter at all. But one must keep writing as a regular habit, and try and at least put in 500,000 words a day. So that that discipline is maintained, because I think that's very important. You can always review your work later on. Maybe you are going through a rough patch and you find that the quality of work is not what you want, but at least you have created something. So these are a few things which I feel are very, very important for any person who's setting out on the writing journey. And finally, above all, please note that this is not a sprint, this is a marathon. So you will have to have a lot of patience. You will have to have a lot of ability to stay in the play for a very long period of time. And even at the end of it, you may not get the kind of success you're looking for. Again, I would urge any person who's coming into this writing field to be able to distinguish between what is creative success and commercial success. So whenever you create something, you're succeeding, it makes you happy, you are successful, right? So don't always feel that commercial success is what you will get quickly, because otherwise you're going to get extremely disappointed. And the other thing I want to say is, don't cut your options. If you are in a job, if you are working somewhere which is with a stable income, do not jump into the writing bandwagon, because the kind of money you expect or hope to make may not see the light of day for many, many months or years to come. True. So you must be practical about, even though you may be very passionate about writing, that practical side you must never abandon. So these are a few things which I think are very important for anyone starting out to write.
Definitely. Okay, so that's all for today, guys. I hope you must have enjoyed this lovely and inspiring conversation with Bhaswar sir. And if you do, then do follow our podcast, available on all the leading podcast platforms. Don't forget to buy and read the book. आप जैसे Amazon पे जाएं, वहाँ पे सर्च करें भास्वर मुखर्जी सर की बुक आ जाएगी. जरूर खरीदें, पढ़ें और अपने चाहने वाले जानने वाले तो जरूर शेयर करें. Thank you so much, sir, for coming on our show. It is my honor to be able to host you today.
Thank you so much for having me, and I wish all of you and the people who are listening to this podcast a wonderful 2024, because New Year is around the corner. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir.